let's move into Barbershop Speaks, because that seems like the culmination of your values, what you care about, what your strengths are, in being in front of people and building a community and having, very relevant conversations that we just aren't having anymore. Like, you're creating a forum for us to have intelligent discussions and debates in barbershops. And so can you talk about the genesis of Barbershop Speaks, and then what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah. So Barbershop Speaks is my baby. This past year in 2023. So for those of you who are listening to this in 2040 and 2050, this podcast was recorded in 2023 on August 8th. And so I started it 7 years ago, and it was our 7th birthday last month. And one of my best friends, Brandon, he texted me. He said, "Yo, Jeff, Barbershop Speaks is 7 years old. Keep feeding that baby."
Shout out to Brandon.
Shout out to Brandon. He is hilarious. And I don't know why.
He said, "Keep feeding that baby.
Don't let it
starve.
Don't let it starve." And look, I am so. We could have a podcast episode on how grateful I am for Brandon in my life. But when he said that, it really impacted me. For whatever reason, it's the little things that really impacted me. Like, I'm sure he probably thought about it, texted, meant to be funny, but also was like serious at the same time. But it was really impactful because it is a baby that it grew pretty fast, in that we received, let's call it, national attention within our first year, and that we were featured on NPR.
Well, before we go into that, talk to us about what Barbershop Speaks is.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. And so Barbershop Speaks is an organization I created in 2016 to engage in intelligent discussions inside barbershops and beauty salons. And the origin is, I lived in Orlando, as I mentioned, and I decided that I was going to move back to Miami. And, given the entrepreneur that I am, I was like, I want to create something when I come back. But also, I wanted to be a part of a community where I'm meeting new people and like-minded individuals. And I just couldn't think of what to create and what to do. And I have the mentality of supporting other people. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure that there's a million other networking events I could have went to consistently, but I still had the entrepreneurial spirit of saying I want to create something. And I remember I was thinking, when I move back to Miami, I'll probably go to a local Starbucks and put up a sign that says, "Let's have intelligent conversations." And I was like, that would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be kind of weird. That's low key weird. Like, I'll be that guy, I'll get roasted on Twitter. And so I was like, all right, that wouldn't be it. And then one day I was getting a haircut inside a barbershop, and there was this big argument, and it's a stupid argument because, anyone who looks back on it at this year and 30 years from now, they'll be like, why were people arguing this? But they were arguing who's better, LeBron or Stephen Curry. And I'm like,
let's talk about it.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Let's talk about it.
I was getting my cut, and I was about to tell the barber to just slow down, let me stand up and just end all arguments right here.
LeBron versus Steph?
Yeah,
not even LeBron versus Jordan.
Yeah, that was a serious conversation they were having, and I was shocked. I was befuddled. I was flabbergasted. I was taken aback that was a conversation. LeBron is clearly the greatest basketball player to ever breathe.
Okay, talk about it.
And
hold on. Let's deep dive into that. What are the stats?
We don't have to deep dive right now.
Not yet?
We could deep dive later.
Okay.
But I was like, they're wasting their energy and their breath having that argument. But what would happen if we have conversations that actually matter? What would happen if we have conversations that actually impact the way people live?
Okay.
What if we had dialogues that actually transform how we view ourselves and how we view the world, and that can make a measurable impact on our lives? And I was like, Barbershop Speaks. Like, the name hit me right there in that chair. The green eggs and ham right there in that chair.
Dr. Seuss looking boy.
Right there in that chair. That's when I started to care. And I was like, I want life to be more fair.
Bars. So I love that. So like you're in the barbershop and all of it makes sense. You're in there and, you know, it's this community where you have a melting pot of generations. So you have, you might have the father figure who brings his son, and then he comes into this community, and there's like older, you know, wise kings in the neighborhood, and they're having conversations about sports, about religion, about relationships, about finance, about all these different things. And a lot of times we sort of take that for granted and we have trivial conversations. But what you're saying is you've created this this mechanism where like you're able to provide a structured way of having like really important conversations that impact our community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in speaking about the origin story, I don't want to neglect the inspiration that I also received from our sister, Makisha Noel. At the time, she had what's called the Living Room Project. And so she would host dialogues and debates inside college dorms, inside their living room. And the idea of the Living Room Project was how we think and behave were imparted in us through the teachings of our family and parents and siblings inside the living room. And the Living Room Project was essentially a way to deconstruct those things that we learned and reconstruct it with what we know now. So now we have an accumulation of experiences and knowledge. And so it was such a fascinating and beautiful concept. And, you know, like Maki did an incredible job putting together those dialogues and debates inside living rooms. Like she did it inside her living room, inside her friends' living rooms with people who the people who lived in that dorm were Black. She did it with one of my friends who were white. Like there was just so many. It was so diverse in those living rooms. And so I'd like to just shout out Maki for what she did, because I know it was definitely an inspiration for me. And I know part of her inspiration was a conversation that we would have in our living rooms in Miami. I think there was a time when you moved back to Miami and we would have conversations with friends inside the living room as well. And so I think all of it has really, all of our experiences really stacked on top of each other to create what we see today. And so I'm extremely grateful for everyone who came before me, the people who inspired me. Another person who inspired me is Rachel Allen, or Dr. Rachel Allen. Okay. She has what's called the Peace and Justice Institute, and she did something when I lived in Orlando called Orlando Speaks, and she would have people from the community members sit at tables with police officers, and we would have real authentic conversations. And I remember the last Orlando Speaks I went to, I sat down at a table with the police officer called Orlando. This is when I was living in Orlando. His name was
Orlando?
Yeah, his name was Orlando. We were living in Orlando.
Shout out to Orlando from Orlando.
And I don't remember exactly what was said in the conversation, but I just remember him pouring out his heart. And I was like, man, this is a real human I'm speaking to. This is just not somebody with a badge. I was about to say what Lil Durk said. I was like, this is just not a little bleep with a badge.
We'll take the first one. We'll take the first one.
You know, yeah. But he was a human. Anyway, so I say that to say, like, if I were to take some time and reflect deeply on the origin of Barbershop Speaks, like I got it from a lot of places, and of course from the old boy, from Dad.